are you?
I'm well, man.
Have I met you before?
We haven't, actually.
Oh.
No. So how you been?
Good.
Long day?
Not particularly. Not as long as yesterday. Yesterday was a fucking bitch of a day.
What made it such a bitch?
Took me 19 hours to get from my front door to my fucking hotel room here yesterday. And it was the worst flight of all time. I was sat beside possibly the most annoying human being I've ever met in my entire life.
Really? What made them so annoying?
He was fucking South African. That's all you need.
Neither here nor there?
Oh, he was South African.
And we'll just let it hang in the air?
Just fucking annoyed the fuck out of me. He asked me to do a gig, right, in Johannesburg to save the rhinos, right? I was like, what the fuck has that got to do with me?
Yeah.
Rhinos, okay, you know, whatever, peace, man, you know, but fuck's sake.
When you're in a situation like that, do you...
You weep silently.
But you let them down gently?
Yeah.
Or like, are you polite?
I wept silently. By one point, I put my headphones on. I wasn't even listening to music because I thought, this guy's fucking getting on.
Just fake sleep?
I faked listening to music for a while, and it was awful. It was dreadful. Never again will I get an aisle seat.
I kind of wanted to start, and this is kind of a weird place to start, but with parenting. Just because, because it's interesting to me.
It's always my preferred place to start an interview.
Oh, good, okay,
Let's get the parenting out of the way first.
Yeah, we're off to a great start.
And get to the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah, it's like a slow burn.
Which, if you do it properly, does lead to parenting. Right, so where you're going with that.
Well, obviously you're a very successful guy. You came from humble beginnings. And I always find it fascinating when parents have to parent from that point of view, because either they kind of come from a place of like, I want to give my kids everything that I never had, and they kind of go really far that way, or they go, I know my kids are gonna have to earn it and sort of do it the way I did it. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I fall leaning towards the former. Imagine being like uber successful and then saying to your kids, you're not getting fuck all of the fruits of my labor. What an arsehole. I mean, my kids, God bless them, you know what I mean? And I wish I had their life, but they'll never have my drive, you know what I mean? Because they've always got the safety net of their dad's still expanding bank balance. But you know, that creates its own problems for them, so they've got to deal with that. But they're your kids, and they're there to be indulged, I think.
Yeah, I think it was Judd Apatow was talking about his daughters. He's like, oh, we try to teach them the right way, but I'm not gonna make them like flying coach while I'm in first class to teach them a lesson.
No.
We can't deny who we are.
No, of course. I say to them, you lucky little fuckers. You see all this shit? This wasn't around when I was a fucking child. I bring my kids back up to Manchester, where I'm from, and my kids are just like, really? You're from here? I'm like, no, I know. Terrible, isn't it?
With the new record, and I guess just like writing music in general, do you have specific people, whenever you go through the process, that you trust with constructive criticism?
I don't tend to play anything to anyone unless they ask. I don't seek advice, because I think you have to have some kind of real tunnel vision with it all. That's the way I've always worked. I only play people when it's finished. Because I don't like all my friends that are in bands, if they say to me, oh, I'm going to play you some stuff, and then after they say, but it's not finished. It's like, well, don't fucking play me then until it's finished, you know. So I don't really play anyone until it's finished, unless I'm playing it at home and then people will offer an opinion. But I don't ask for advice. I don't need it. My opinion is what counts, and that's it.
Right. So there's no one in particular to be like, hey, Noel, maybe try this.
Well, the producer, the people that are helping you make it, maybe, if you're second guessing yourself. There was more of that. I was being directed more on this album than any record I've ever made. But as in me saying to somebody, what do you think I should do with this? No.
So is it difficult to allow yourself to be directed? You're saying on this record more so than ever before.
No, because the way me and my producer for this record, David Holmes, insisted that this record be created in the studio with no prior material going in there. So that was a place I had to get. I was like a headspace I had to get into. So I was along on the ride, you know what I mean? And thinking, well, this I've never done this before, so it was a trip for me, you know. And I got to say, it took over 3 years to make this record, and for about the first year, when it wasn't really going anywhere, we were just laying the groundwork. It was a bit frustrating because I write every day at home, so I've got hundreds of songs waiting to go. But we made a pact to see it through, and as the sessions went by, it started to grow a little bit and a bit more, but it was a fascinating way to work.
Is that a discipline you have to sort of learn, meaning I'm going to get up and write every day? Because there's going to be days you're not going to want to write.
I want to go there every day. I've got no hobbies. The only thing I care about in life, or the things I care about, is music, my football team, my family, and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about anything else.
I was watching Supersonic, and you'd mentioned...
Good film.
It is a good film.
Good film.
I'm
sure I should get an Oscar for that.
You'd mentioned in it that, it was a part of the movie where you'd sort of left Oasis for a bit on that first American tour, and then you sort of said, maybe jokingly, I should have stayed away, and then my first solo record would have been Morning Glory.
Yeah, I was joking, of
pretty
course.
funny.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to you on Absolute Radio with Matt Morgan, and which was fucking hilarious. And you'd mentioned that, you'd burned a lot of B-sides in the 90s, and you'd held on to them, they could have become Be Here Now.
Yeah.
Are you someone philosophically that tends to sort of revisit your choices and look at maybe these forks in the road, paths not taken? Sometimes
they do. You do find yourself thinking about it. What would have happened if Acquiesce or Talk Tonight would have been, anything other than B-sides? But I don't think about it with any regrets, because to be honest, it's cooler that they're B-sides, because future generations then have to discover them for themselves, and they kind of feel like they've got a little bit more of an ownership of it. But I think about it from time to time, but not with any regret. I don't have any musical regrets at all.
It's more like a thought exercise? Like it's like a fascinating...
Well, yeah, sometimes for instance, when I'm putting set lists together for this upcoming tour, and I'm looking at lists of songs that I've wrote, and could I do that song? And I'm thinking, God, wow, rocking chair. What was I? Why didn't I just keep that? You know what I mean? And sometimes you think the record company people were kind of were oblivious to it and all. But I guess I went through a period of about 3 years where every song that I wrote has become a classic, whether they be B-sides or album tracks or what have you. And of course, when you're in that period, nobody thinks it's going to end. So
when it's raining.
Yeah. And there you go. So I've no regrets about any of it at all.
Do you consider that, like when you talk about this sort of like charmed period where everything you write it becomes this sort of classic, do you ever find yourself being like, I want to capture that again? Or is that sort of the pursuit of songwriting in general?
Well, the way that I write is I'm at the mercy of whatever's going on in the universe, and they fall out of the sky. So I couldn't tell you how I wrote Champagne Supernova. I couldn't tell you how I wrote Don't Look Back in Anger. I could tell you where it was, but I couldn't tell you, I wasn't really trying to say anything. So, and if you're writing songs as a 25-year-old, aspiring to be, a huge rock star, once you're writing songs as a huge rock star, you're not in the same headspace, you know what I mean? You can't do it as simple as that. You can't go back. And even if you tried, people would know you were faking it. You've just got to own who you are at that point in your life, and that's it. And not worry about it, and carry on. I look at it this way. This record that I make is not the last one I'll ever make. It isn't the best one I'll ever make. It's certainly not the worst. It's just a moment in time. And that's it. 10 years from now, I'll have made another 2 records. We might not be talking about this album, but we're talking about it now, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. When people get into music, it's fun to mess around with your buddies, make music, and then at some point, if you're lucky enough to become successful, it shifts into sort of a career thing, and you sort of have to adjust. And I think a lot of people in bands are like, shit, I didn't sign up for this. Do you remember like when it shifted for you, and was that a difficult adjustment, or you were kind of like, no, I can figure this out, I can do the business part as well?
Well, I was quite, in rock and roll terms, I was quite old when it happened to me. So I was 26 when I signed my first record deal. Now, if you think Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix all died at 27, let's put that into perspective. So I was and I'd been part of a Spiral Carpets road crew, so I'd traveled the world, I'd seen it all, I knew the game.
Did you feel old at that time?
I've always felt, the way I feel today, I felt this way since I was 16.
Really?
Yeah, I've always had quite a level head and old head on young shoulders. And I've always been able to look at the bigger picture. So when I got a record deal, I never thought, well, we'll put this album out and see what happens. I'd already written Morning Glory and was already halfway through writing the one after. So I've always been 5 years ahead of everybody else in musical terms.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I didn't, this is all natural to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you just turned 50.
I have, but you know, let's not focus on that.
Well, that was going to be the question. You know, some people have hang-ups with, oh, I'm turning 30 or I'm 25 or 40.
Yeah.
Did you ever get that? Or?
No, and I'll tell you why. There's one fundamental reason why I don't really give a shit about the age thing, and it's this here.
Full head of hair?
Because this fucker here is literally, just dictates everything. If you can you imagine a bald Mick Jagger? It's a horrifying thought, right? That just says it all.
Yeah.
So if I've still got this when I'm 76, I don't give a fuck, to be quite honest. It's all about the hair.
Yeah.
That's it.
How much of a role do you think luck plays in success?
I'm not sure luck didn't write the songs. Timing is a different thing altogether. Oasis came along at exactly the right time when the grunge thing had played out, the acid house thing had played out, and the stage was set for something else. The Stone Roses had disappeared, and the stage was set for something else. I wrote Supersonic, and that was it. If I'd have wrote Supersonic 5 years earlier, would anybody have given a shit? I'd like to think that they would have. If I'm just a new guy starting out tomorrow and I'd wrote Supersonic tomorrow, you'd like to think somebody would give a shit. But we happened at exactly the right time. So, luck didn't write the songs. You know, you're not. I mean, as a songwriter, luck doesn't come into it. It's perseverance and talent and tiptoeing around other people's copyrights, so to speak.
And when you catch that wave, you got to ride it, right?
Totally.
Because
yeah. And look, I was in a unique position in Oasis where I was, as I say, 5 years ahead of everybody else. I knew where it was going. And when I used to say, we are going to be the greatest band in the world, I meant it. I knew it. I fucking knew it. I knew enough about music to know that after I wrote Live Forever, I knew it, you know. And everybody else said the words, but they couldn't have known because they hadn't heard what was coming next. So I taught the talk, and I only taught the talk because I knew I could back it up. Mm. So I could go out and talk shit about any band in the fucking universe and just say, yeah. And people would say, what, these fucking arrogant fuckers? And I'd say, yeah, well, I've just written a song called Champagne Supernova, so suck my balls.
I heard you answering a question about rock and roll, and you saying this record is the most rock and roll that you felt at this moment. I guess in general, I went and saw Coldplay at Skydome in Toronto, and it was a great show, and everyone walked away feeling wonderful, but I kind of walked away thinking like, oh man, that was a really inclusive show, it was really well done, I feel good. But there was nothing rebellious or dangerous about it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I'm wondering, like, rock these days, have tastes changed, or do bands not come along like that anymore? Is it more like, hey, we're putting on a big show, it's almost like a traveling theater, and this might even speak to how you view how you put on your shows?
Well, being rebellious and all that thing, that's not Coldplay's thing anyway.
No, it's not.
I mean, their thing is to make you feel, not so much feel, to make you feel good about yourself and feel good about the band and feel good about the world. And so that's not their thing. But I think that rock music now is just that. I don't think rock and roll exists. Rock music has become, the guys with the tattoos and the shouting and the fucking, the politics and the shouting and the ripped jeans and there's more shouting.
Sure.
And I don't find it melodic in any way. But I'm not sure where you look at modern guitar bands and you'll see the guitarists and they kind of wear the guitar. They don't really fucking play it. And I just think it's a different era. You know what I mean? I think rock killed rock and roll. When I say that this album is my most rock and roll album, it's not because it's not about the Marshall Stack and the fucking Les Paul. Rock and roll to me is about freedom of thought and freedom of expression. That's why it's rock and roll, because it's not, as in the studio, I'm not worried about what anyone else is thinking about it. It comes from the soul.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you can argue and debate about the execution of an artistic decision. You can't question the artistic decision. You can't do it. It's an artistic decision. You can debate whether you like the music or not, of course. If you buy it, if you stream it, you can kiss my fucking arsehole. If you buy it and take it home and then think, well, I don't like it, then I do apologise. I'll make another record. You might like that one even less. But it's about freedom to do what you want.
I guess, lastly, as we wrap up, you know, every time Liam tweets about you, it makes headlines. And I feel like, you know, the narrative is sort of, you know, Liam's sort of entertaining and maybe a little unhinged. Do you think maybe he's one of the most savvy marketers in music right now?
Well, he's doing a fucking good job of marketing me, which I gotta say, I'm very thankful for. It means the world to me. He's off around the world benefiting from my genius. You're welcome, by the way. I'm providing a public service to that boy.
Well, I think he might be coming on our show in a couple weeks.
Really?
Would you like me to pass anything along?
Get a list of my back catalogue.
Okay.
If there's anything that he's missing out. As long as he keeps filling out the PRS forms at the end of the show, again, he can lick my balls. I don't give a fuck what he does. Tell him to enjoy what's left of his hairdo.
Thank you so much for your time, Noel.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.